North Charleston police are asking for the community's help tonight after a 4th of July block party got out of hand, resulting in gunfire, fights, and an assault on multiple police officers and several arrests. Last night around 8:30, North Charleston police responded to a block party of about 400 people in the Chicora, Cherokee neighborhood after receiving reports of people firing fireworks at passing vehicles. Police were informed that multiple people had discharged firearms as well, which led police to defuse the situation by asking everyone to leave. North Charleston Police Chief Ron Camacho tells us fights then broke out, which led to multiple officers being assaulted. NCPD arrested 3 juveniles and 1 adult, and at least 1 person was charged with assaulting an officer. Chief Camacho says North Charleston police have changed the way it interacts with juveniles recently or suspects under 18 years old in certain situations, as officers of higher ranking are now required to be involved. Tonight, Camacho is also asking for the community's help.
Stuff like this is getting dangerous. I am looking for any way possible to try to solve this issue of unruly juveniles. It's very complex and probably the most difficult thing that I've had to deal with in my career.
Says he plans to meet with law enforcement and community leaders tomorrow to discuss yesterday's incident and ways to prevent future situations like this while keeping the community safe.
It was supposed to be a 4th of July celebration. It was supposed to be people outside, families enjoying a holiday, fireworks going off, food on the grill, music playing, and the community coming together. But instead, what we saw out of North Charleston was chaos. We saw the block party turn into fights, gunfire, fireworks being shot at cars, officers being attacked, and a female police officer getting jumped in the street while trying to do her job. And let me say this right from the start. This is not just about one viral video. This is not just about one neighborhood. This is not just about one group of teenagers acting out. This is about what happens when respect disappears, when discipline disappears, when consequences disappear, and when too many people in the community get scared to tell the truth. Because the truth is simple. You cannot have safety without order. You cannot have peace without accountability, and you cannot keep making excuses for young people who are old enough to know better, especially when their actions put everybody around them in danger. So in this video, we need to break this down in a calm way, a clear way, in a way that everybody can understand. And we are going to talk about what happened, why this video went viral, and why people are so frustrated and what the real takeaway is. Because the lesson here is bigger than North Charleston. The lesson is about parenting, community standards, respect for authority, consequences, and what happens when society keeps lowering the bar for behavior until the behavior becomes completely out of control. And according to the reports, as you guys heard in this first clip, North Charleston police responded to a 4th of July block party in the Chicora, Cherokee neighborhood after things started getting out of hand. This was not some tiny gathering with 5 or 10 people standing outside. Reports said there were around 400 people there. Police said they received calls about fireworks being shot at passing vehicles. And then they were told that firearms had also been discharged. Now, that right there changes everything. Once you have fireworks being aimed at cars and reports of gunfire, this is no longer just a party. This is a public safety problem. This is the kind of situation where somebody innocent can get hurt. As we know it, a child can get hurt, a driver can crash, a person who had nothing to do with the foolishness can lose their life because somebody else decided to act reckless. So police came in and tried to shut the event down, and they made announcements. They told people the party was over. They told people to leave the area safely. That is what you're supposed to do when a crowd situation turns dangerous. You try to clear the area before it gets worse. But instead of people leaving and calming down, fights started breaking out. More chaos followed. Officers had to go out of their vehicles and physically step in to separate people and restore order. We all know that police officers have to basically take on the action of de-escalation in this chaos. And during all of this, multiple officers were assaulted. 2 female officers were injured, which we're going to get to those 2 clips in a minute. Several people were arrested, including juveniles and 1 adult. Police also said multiple firearms and even a makeshift spear were recovered. Now, pause right there. A makeshift spear at a block party. That tells you this was not just innocent kids having fun. That tells you some people showed up ready for trouble, or at the very least, they were willing to turn the celebration into something dangerous. And that is the part people need to stop dancing around, right? Before I start talking about the video, that everybody's reacting to. I want to play it now in regards to the two clips from two different angles in the situation. In the second clip, I will let you know I had to mute the audio due to copyright purposes and the music playing in the background of it. So check out this first clip of this chaos, which is so totally unacceptable. Now, this is the second clip where I had to mute the audio of this situation. You can literally see her tussling and rustling, and they're ganging up on the female officer. And also, my heart goes out to these officers and police officers throughout the nation with these teen takeovers. And every single day, they put their life on the line to uphold public safety. And it seems as though now they are painted as the villains, when they're just trying to uphold public safety in order to get rid of the villains. How do the individuals that are trying to get rid of the villains for the safety of everybody, putting their life in jeopardy every single day, not promise to come home to their loved ones, end up turning to the villains? This is the world we're in, family, and this is why we're having this conversation. I want to know you guys' thoughts in the comments below, right? Because we have our youth going against officers for protecting our youth and everybody else in the environment. Older individuals, adults, seniors, young individuals, older individuals, mid-age individuals, all across the board. So in this footage, as you've seen, and the two angles that we just came across and watched, you see officers trying to deal with a crowd that is completely out of control. You see a female officer on the ground or being overwhelmed while people are around her. You see what appears to be a young person swinging an object at an officer. You see another person fighting with officers, and you see officers trying to use force to get control of the situation. And the whole thing just looks bad. It looks embarrassing, it looks dangerous, and it looks like the kind of scene that no decent community should ever want to see attached to its name. But here's the part people need to understand. Once you put your hands on a police officer, once you swing something at a police officer, once you jump into a fight with law enforcement while they are responding to gunfire and fights, you have crossed the line. And at that point, this is not about being young. This is not about being misunderstood. This is not about people needing more programs and more excuses. This is about right and wrong in this conversation. You cannot attack police in the street and then act shocked when people say you need to be held accountable. You cannot turn a holiday event into a dangerous scene and then blame everybody else when the police show up. And I know some people will say, well, maybe the officers should have handled it differently. Maybe they should have backed away. Maybe they should have waited. But let's be honest. If police had backed away and somebody got shot, those same people would be online saying, where were the police? Why didn't they do anything? Why did they let the situation get worse? So we have to be fair across the board and be very objective and take our emotions out of it. Nobody is saying they are perfect, right? But like I said, we have to be objective and take our feelings out of it to assess the situation across the board, being fair. But in this situation, they were responding to reports of gunfire, fights, fireworks being shot at cars, and a crowd that had become unsafe. They had a responsibility to protect the public, and they had a responsibility to stop the chaos before it turned into something worse. And this is where we have to talk about the bigger problem. And before we talk about the bigger problem, I want you guys in this last clip to see the sheriff, or the leading, I should say, police officer in this, sheriff, I guess you could say, deputy sheriff, break down the situation and the incident as he, disclosed and broke it down to the public and to the media.
Charleston Police Department would like to address the incidents that occurred in the Chicora Cherokee community on the evening of July 4th, 2026, which have gone viral on social media. A neighborhood block party that had been permitted by the city of North Charleston in advance of the holiday. Earlier that day, police leadership met with the event organizers to discuss the event, including traffic, parking plans to ensure emergency vehicles could safely access the area if needed. At approximately 8:30 p.m., officers began receiving reports of gunfire and individuals firing fireworks toward passing vehicles. Officers responded immediately and were informed by attendees that several people had begun discharging firearms. Officers made repeated public announcements advising that the event had ended and directing everyone to leave the area safely in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. Despite those efforts, multiple fights broke out and additional gunshots were fired. Officers exited their patrol vehicles to intervene, separate the individuals involved in the fights, and work to restore order and protect the public. During the response, multiple firearms and a makeshift spear were recovered. Multiple officers were physically assaulted, with 2 female officers sustaining minor injuries. Several attendees were arrested as a result of their actions. Attacks on law enforcement are unacceptable, and those responsible will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The safety of our residents and visitors remains our highest priority. We appreciate the cooperation of many attendees who complied with officers' instructions. We especially thank those from the community who helped officers during the attacks, and the different law enforcement agencies who responded to assist, which included Charleston County Sheriff's Office, the Charleston Police Department, the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office, and the South Carolina Highway Patrol. The 2 female officers that were injured are fine. They're working. I spoke to them. The mayor spoke to them. They're in good spirits. The young officer that's in the video, she's back working today. Kind of gives you a little sense of that North Charleston police toughness and pride that we take in ourselves, and the spirit that this department has. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
How many arrests were made and under what charges?
4 arrests were made yesterday, 3 juveniles and 1 adult. I know at least 1 or 2 of those arrests were for assaulting an officer. I don't know what the other 2 arrests were for. I don't have that information in front of me.
What's the location, the address where this actually took place?
In the area of the Chicora Community Park on Calvert. That happened in that area, and that whole area became basically a civil disturbance. It spilled out. So,
can you confirm any identities of who was arrested?
I don't have that. That'll be coming out tomorrow morning.
So I know this was permitted. I was just wondering if you had any additional details about how the celebration turned into the civil disturbance, and how many gunshots might have been fired, or by how many people.
Yeah, our officers went out there and made contact with the permitted person at first, and it was fine. We got called back there, and that's when this large crowd was there. So it's the 4th of July. We had prior intelligence that a bunch of kids, a bunch of juveniles were going to be running around, having these fights with these, Roman candles, these fireworks. And we just didn't know that they were going to be in that area at that time. So we had planned for that. I think they just took advantage of that block party intermingled and started being unruly.
So were the people who you knew were going to have Roman candle fights, were they not originally with the block party? Do you know?
Yeah, that we're trying to figure out. We're trying to investigate. We have a ton of body-worn camera footage that we have to go to. More arrests will be made as we go through our body camera footage. What you got on that social media, you're looking at one little snippet of one little video. We were out there for an extended period of time, and there was a lot of contact that was made. Also, we recovered 4 firearms, 2 of which were automatic, okay? So that just shows that this wasn't just, you know, us saying that there was gunfire there. We recovered four weapons.
We leave it there. And this is where we have to talk about the bigger problem, right? Because this is not the first time we've seen teenagers acting violent in public, and unfortunately, it will not be the last if nothing changes. Across the country, we keep seeing stories like this: teenagers jumping people, teenagers attacking police, teenagers fighting in malls, teenagers causing chaos at public events, teenagers filming themselves doing things that can destroy their futures before they even become adults. And every time it happens, people want to have the same fake conversation. They want to blame poverty, blame racism, blame boredom, blame police, blame society, blame everything except the actual choices being made. Now, let me be clear. Yes, some people come from hard situations. Yes, some families are struggling. Yes, some neighborhoods need more opportunity. Yes, some kids are growing up without strong guidance. All of that can be true, but none of that excuses violence. None of that excuses attacking the officer. And none of that excuses bringing weapons around a crowd. None of that excuses shooting fireworks at vehicles. At some point, we have to stop confusing explanation with excuse, and you can explain why some people are struggling without excusing destructive behavior. And that is where a lot of people get lost. They think accountability is hate. It is not. Accountability is love with standards. Accountability says, I care enough about you to tell you the truth before your behavior destroys your life. Accountability says, I'm not going to clap for you while you walk into a jail cell, a courtroom, or a graveyard. And that is what too many young people are missing. They are missing adults who will tell them no, and they are missing adults who will correct them. They are missing adults who will say, you are not leaving this house to act a fool in the street, and you're not going to embarrass his family. You're not going to put your hands on police. You're not going to make the whole community look bad because you do not know how to control yourself. Now, and this is where the adults have to take responsibility too, because when we see teenagers acting this out of control, we have to ask a serious question. Where are the adults? Where are the parents? Where are the guardians at this cookout, barbecue, et cetera, et cetera? Where are the uncles, the aunties, the coaches, the pastors, the mentors, the community leaders? Where are the people who are supposed to step in before police have to step in? And I know every parent cannot control every single thing their child does. I know some parents are working long hours. I know some grandparents are raising kids they did not plan to raise. I know some families are doing the best they can with what they have. So this is not about attacking every parent, but we still have to tell the truth. A community cannot keep producing this kind of behavior and they act like nobody has any responsibility for it. If a teenager is out in the street in a violent crowd, fighting police, swinging objects, running from officers, or participating in chaos, somebody failed somewhere. Maybe it was the home, maybe it was the school, maybe it was the culture, maybe it was the friend group, maybe it was all of it together. But failure happened, and until people are willing to say that out loud, nothing is going to change. And we have too many excuses for bad behavior. We have called it youthful mistakes when it actually is criminal conduct. We have called it kids being kids when it's actually violence. We have called it a lack of resources when sometimes it is simply a lack of discipline. And again, discipline does not mean abuse. Discipline means structure. Discipline means standards. Discipline means correction. And discipline means teaching young people that actions have consequences. Because the real world does not care how old you are when you're making an adult decision. If you are old enough to attack a police officer, you are old enough to face serious consequences for that decision to the fullest extent of the law. And let's be honest about something else. Respect for law and order does not mean you believe every officer is perfect. That is a lazy argument people use to avoid the real issue. You can support good policing and still call out bad policing. You can believe in civil rights and still believe criminals should be arrested. You can believe young people deserve opportunity and still believe they need consequences when they break the law. These things are not opposites. They can all be true at the same time. But what we cannot do is build a culture where the first instinct is to fight the police every time they show up. That is dangerous. That is foolish. And it makes the neighborhood less safe for everybody because who suffers the most when police cannot control a violent scene? The people who live there, the elderly people I mentioned, the seniors who have so much wisdom, who lived on this earth to the fullest extent and been through so many events, right? They want peace, right? The seniors. I'm sure everybody wants peace, right? Those who work hard, the mother trying to get her kids home safely, the small business owner, the family that wants to have a cookout without bullets flying or fights breaking out. Those are the people who pay the price when the streets get out of control. And that is why this conversation matters. This is not about trying to sound tough online. This is not about trying to bash young people. This is about protecting good people from reckless people. This is about saying the community deserves better. And it's about saying we should not normalize chaos just because we are afraid of hurting feelings, because feelings do not matter more than safety. Excuses do not matter more than order. And politics does not matter more than innocent people making it home alive. So the biggest takeaway from this video is simple. What we allow, we encourage. If a child grows up seeing adults make excuses for everything, that child learns excuses are more powerful than consequences. If a teenager sees people defend bad behavior just because they don't like police, that teenager learns that disrespect is acceptable. If a community sees violence and stays silent, violence becomes normal. And once violence becomes normal, everybody loses. The kids lose because their future gets destroyed. The parents lose because their homes are filled with stress and shame. The neighborhood loses because good people become afraid to come outside. And the police lose because their jobs become even more dangerous. And the whole city loses because nobody wants to invest, visit, or raise a family in a place where chaos is accepted. That is why consequences matter. Consequences are not just punishment. Consequences are teaching tools. They teach people that certain lines cannot be crossed. They teach young people that society has standards. They teach the community that order will be defended. And they teach everybody watching that violence will not be rewarded with sympathy and excuses. And this is what we should be teaching with this story. We should be teaching that freedom comes with responsibility, and we should be teaching that celebration does not mean lawlessness. We should be teaching that being young does not give you permission to hurt people, right? And that respect starts at home before it ever reaches the street. Real love for your community means telling the truth about what is hurting it. And there is a deeper lesson here too. A lot of people do not notice order until order disappears. When things are peaceful, people take it for granted. They complain about rules. They complain about police presence. They complain about curfews. They complain about parents being strict. And they complain about adults saying no. But when there are no rules, when there is no discipline, when there is no respect, and when everybody does whatever they want, the same people start asking why nobody is safe. That is the contradiction. People want peace, but they do not want the standards that create peace. People want safe neighborhoods, but they do not want to call out the behavior making neighborhoods unsafe. People want young people to succeed, but they do not want them to, they don't want to correct them when they are clearly going down the wrong path. And that does not work. You cannot plant disorder and expect to harvest peace. And you cannot allow disrespect and expect to build strong citizens. You cannot keep protecting people from consequences and then act surprised when they become more reckless. Every culture, every wise parent, every strong grandparent understands this. I love my seniors. I'm like a young person with an old soul, they say, because I love extracting their wisdom because they've been through things. They have been through and they have gone through their go through. Not to get off subject, but what you tolerate, you train. What you permit, you promote. What you fail to correct, you should expect to see again. So when we look at these videos and these clips and we see what the North Charleston police had to say on behalf of this police officer right here speaking on behalf of the police department, the bigger question should be, what are we going to do differently so the next group of young people does not think this is acceptable? That means the solution has to be bigger than just arrests. Even though arrests are necessary when people commit crimes, the solution has to start earlier. And it starts in the home. It starts with parents knowing where their children are. And it starts with adult checking bad behavior before it becomes criminal behavior. And it starts with school enforcing standards instead of being afraid to discipline students. Community leaders telling the truth instead of only showing up after the cameras come out, right? And supporting our police officer, like local officials supporting police when officers are doing their jobs correctly, right? Prosecutors taking violent juvenile crime seriously. And yes, it starts with young people understanding that if you make grown-up choices, you may face grown-up consequences. That does not mean every teenager should have their life thrown away over one mistake. But attacking police, carrying weapons, shooting into crowds, and turning public events into violent scenes are not small mistakes. There are serious actions. And serious actions require serious consequences. The goal should not be revenge. The goal should be correction, protection, and prevention. Correct the person who did wrong, protect the public from harm, prevent the next incident from happening. And that is how a serious society responds. And for the people who want to make this about race, I am not going there in a way some people want me to go there. I'm focused on behavior. Wrong is wrong no matter who does it. If the people attacking officers were black, white, Hispanic, Asian, rich, poor, young, old, no matter the race, no matter it would still be wrong. The standard has to be the same. You do not get a pass because of your background. You do not get a pass because of your age. And if your actions are dangerous enough, you do not need to get a pass because somebody online wants to turn you into a victim after you were caught hurting somebody else. And that is one of the biggest problems in our culture right now, or I should say throughout the nation, right? We keep trying to turn wrongdoers into victims while the real victims get ignored. What about the officer who got attacked? What about the people at the party who were scared? What about the drivers who had fireworks shot at them? Them drivers that had nothing to do with them folks. What about the residents who had to watch their neighborhood turn into a dangerous scene? What about the parents who brought their children there thinking it was going to be a normal holiday event? We're celebrating the 250th birthday of the United States of America, and this is what we come to. Everybody's safety matters. Everybody's peace matters, and everybody's rights matter too. We cannot keep acting like the only people who deserve sympathy are the ones causing the problem. So what am I teaching with all of this and my whole rant and tangent, you may ask? I'm teaching that accountability is not hate, and I'm teaching that discipline is not oppression. I'm teaching that law and order is not a bad thing when it protects innocent people, and I'm teaching that young people, as I'm young myself, need correction before the justice system becomes the correction, and I'm teaching that parents and communities have to get involved before police get involved, right? We cannot keep waiting until a video goes viral to admit there is a problem. In this day and age, everybody pays attention when things go viral and focus on going viral, and to the point where we have our youth so focused and gung-ho on making sure they go viral to get attention. So if we really care about these kids and our communities and everybody else, and us as a society and being productive citizens in our communities and the beautiful United States of America, we have to stop lying to our young people who are the next generation. We have to stop telling them that every consequence is unfair. We have to stop pretending that every bad decision is somebody else's fault. We have to stop defending behavior that we would never want happening in front of our own homes. Because that is the real test. Would you want this happening on your street? Would you want your child surrounded by that crowd? And would you want your mother driving through that area while fireworks are being shot at cars? So if the answer is no, then stop making excuses for it. Simple as that. And this is where the deeper lesson comes in, because this connects directly to scripture. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Now, for the spiritual person, that verse is a reminder that children do not raise themselves. God gives parents, families, elders, and communities responsible to guide the next generation. That means correction is a part of love, discipline is a part of love, and teaching respect is part of love. Setting boundaries is part of love, because if we do not train the child in the right direction early, the world will train them in the wrong direction later. And once the bad habits become normal, they are much harder to break or recorrect or redirect. But even for the person who is not spiritual, the life wisdom is still clear. What you plant early is what grows later. Habits become character, character become choices, choices become consequences. If a young person is trained to respect self-control, responsibility, and accountability, that foundation follows them. But if a young person is trained by the streets, trained by social media, trained by bad friends, excuses, and to believe there are no real consequences, that follows them too. So when you see this incident, young people attacking our police, carrying weapons, turning the celebration, the 250th birthday in our beautiful country, and how far we have came, the United States of America on 4th of July, into chaos, we are not just looking at one bad night. We're looking at the fruit of what was allowed to grow over time. And that is why the community has to care before the courtroom gets involved. That is why parents have to correct before police have to respond. That is why love has to include standards, because a community that protects young people from accountability is not saving them. It is setting them up for a harder fall later. At the end of the day, this North Charleston situation should make people think, and it should not just make people angry. Anger fades. Thinking leads to change. This should make every parent ask, what am I teaching my child? I do it myself every single day. Self-evaluation, right? That's the beauty of sitting with yourself at times. Quiet everything down to evaluate yourself. Take the speck out of your own eye so then you could correct others. And you'll be able to correct others the right way, because you have learned within yourself on your own behalf, right? So this should make every young person ask, where's the road taking me as well? So when you look at this is bigger than one block party. This is bigger than one viral clip. This is about whether we are allowing or we are willing to restore or standards before the next incident happens. Are we willing to restore standards before the next incident happens? And that's what it comes down to. Accountability is about stopping these young people before they destroy their own future and hurt innocent people along the way. So let me know what you think. Was this handled the right way? What should happen to the people involved? And more importantly, how do we stop the next generation from thinking this kind of behavior is normal? Drop your thoughts in the comment, hit the like button, share this with somebody who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more honest breakdowns. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and remember, real peace starts with real accountability. Let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you next one on that No Family. Peace. Love you guys. Appreciate you for rocking with me.